Hey everyone, you're listening to the 805 Uncensored. We are showing the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. This podcast covers a variety of topics from music to politics, news, philosophy, and more. There are no limits, which is why we call ourselves Uncensored. So welcome. Please follow us on your podcast and social media platforms of choice. And this is another panel. This is actually our 19th edition of panels. And today we're going to be talking about Venezuela, U.S. imperialism around the world, and some other related topics. So, as usual, we have a bunch of people on the panel. And what I'm going to do is just kind of call on people. You can talk about who you are, where you're from, any related political interests, what you're working on right now, whatever you're comfortable presenting to listeners. So I'll start with you, Izzy, or Iz, as I see it on the screen.
So what's up, guys? Thanks so much for having me. As always, much appreciated. Just saying, hey, like an hour out from DC. I would call myself, I guess, if I have to be labeled, unfortunately, a dirty commie. Um, Shout out to my friend Yarn Against the Machine who crocheted this, an indigenous anarchist who you can support. I'm working on a bunch of different things, but nothing in particular right now. I just want to share. I want to say thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Up next, we'll go with Kaitlyn Sage.
Hello, I'm Kaitlyn Sage. Um, I live in Southern California, currently in Los Angeles, and yeah, I just moved here. I recently lived in Simi Valley, Ventura County, and yeah, I'm a Marxist. That's like my political orientation, and that's how I guess I approach things, especially when it comes to like international stuff. So just want to put that out there, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this discussion, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Up next, Audra.
Hello, hello. It's good to be back. It feels like it's been months since we've connected. So, thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. I am Audra. I am over here just outside of The Hague in a city called Delft in the Netherlands. And yeah, what else am I supposed to say?
Whatever you want, really.
Oh, okay. I'm a yoga teacher and I teach mindfulness meditation courses, and I'm also an astrologist. And I am working on a book right now talking about how we need to change our digital habits and our patterns on social media, if not leave social media. But I'm also trying to work really hard to build a digital network of comrades, if you will, so that we can stay connected without having to binge on daily headlines all the time. We can learn via word of mouth. So my political interests are always for this space to be here, because then I can get boots on the ground reports from Americans and get a sense of reality of what's going on. And then I don't ever have to watch the news or follow media. So yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well said. Thanks, Audra. What time is it over there?
11:13 p.m.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Aleyah, you're up next.
Okay, I'm trying a new digital system, so tell me if you can't hear me well, because it's my first time using it for a meeting. But I'm Aleyah. I use any pronouns. I'm an organizer in Ventura County, or the 805 area, if you guys know the 805 area. Kaitlyn, I see you. We see each other. Yeah, hashtag see me represent. I've actually met you before, so seeing you on the panel, as soon as I saw you, I was like, hey! But anyways,
Good to see you.
yes, I was really excited to speak on this panel because I actually studied this in college and in high school as well. This is partly what I got my degree in, was like, international politics, comparative world economics, and recognizing how the world continuously uses Latin America so as a guinea pig to test out new systems before they try it on the rest of the global south. So I'm very excited to speak on these issues today.
Thanks, Aleyah. Up next is Courtney. Or Court.
I apologize.
Echo.
Hi. I'm sorry, I've been having technical difficulties. I had to sign in 2 spots for some reason. But hi, I'm Courtney. I am here to learn today. I don't know very much at all about most of the topics we'll be discussing, although I have a lot of opinions. But basically, I am one of the co-hosts of a podcast that is on the 805, along with 805 Uncensored on the Anti-Capitalist Podcast Network. And it's called the Bad Bitch segment. We are currently on hiatus, but it's basically a history and pop culture and political podcast. So we just talk about the bad bitches of history and pop culture. And let's see, other than that, I work a corporate job that I don't enjoy, but that's life. And in my spare time, I like to go see live music and long walks on the beach, the typical stuff.
Oh yeah, awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
And definitely check
and
out.
I'm in Buffalo, New York.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Forgot to say that. There's no
Also,
snow here. Right.
Check out her
Climate.
podcast. It's really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Up next is Waseem.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Waseem, pronouns he, him, they, them. I'm situated in Canada on Treaty 6 territory, the homeland of the Métis, Cree, Chippewayan, Anishinaabe, and Nakota First Nations peoples. Right, and I'm also a atmospheric scientist, so I study things like climatology, atmospheric chemistry, those type of things as well. And also, in terms of my political orientation, I am generally just like a general socialist myself. I like to call myself that. Not particularly strict on anything, but but I'm starting to become a lot more politically active now, especially with the most leftist party in Parliament right now, the New Democratic Party. They're having a leadership election, and I'm getting involved in that process as well this year.
Perfect. Thanks, Waseem, for being here. And last but certainly not least, we have AngelMarie, also known as Liberation Education.
Thank you so much. What's up, y'all? Good afternoon. I'm AngelMarie Taylor. I'm just a local college student over at Cal State Channel Islands. I do a lot of organizing for academia, labor, and the community through a Pan-African socialist lens. So I'm really excited to bring into those key themes of solidarity and just how necessary those are for our leftist movement on an international level. I'm really excited to be on the panel with everyone. There's so many, I see so many familiar faces, new faces. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, AngelMarie. Looking forward to the conversation with you. So before I dive into the immediate topics, I'd like everyone to just do kind of opening statements. Whoever wants to speak first, just to give their general thoughts about the topic, latest news, etc. Yeah, let's just jump from there. Not all at once, everyone.
I'm just pulling up the agenda on the little document.
Yeah, no problem.
I can say something, or can I say something?
I see Iz's hand raised, and then I'll go to you, Kaitlyn Stage.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to, first of all, I just wanted to add before we get started, one thing that QueerX Personal talked about recently, which I really appreciate, which is, and I'm sure we'll get into it a bit later, but as far as the most recent ICE shooting, that when we say may they rest in power, that's related to pain that is specifically related to Black liberation and Black verbiage. So I just wanted to add that before anybody uses that. May they rest in peace. They're not the first person to be shot by them. It's all heinous. I know, sorry to just like kind of jump right into that, but I just wanted to add that before we got going. I appreciate Queer X Personal for bringing that up recently.
Thank you for saying that. That's great. Anybody else? Opening thoughts or statements? It doesn't have to necessarily be related to the immediate topic. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney. Oh, sorry. I think it was Kaitlyn Sage first, and then I'll go to Courtney.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so kind of bouncing off of that, I was also recently, it felt wrong whenever I heard people say it, and then it was confirmed that we should also not be saying "say her name" about Rachel Good. Although, you know, she's a white woman, and that's specifically for Black and brown people when they have been taken in acts of violence like this. And a white woman's death is always covered in the media, nearly always. You know, she's beautiful enough, I guess, but you know, I just wanted to point that out. And again, not to diminish what happened here, but may she rest in peace and may her family find peace. And, you know, my heart breaks for everybody impacted right now.
Well said. Kaitlyn Sage, and then Aleyah.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that's a great point. I didn't think about that, so thanks for bringing that up, AngelMarie. But yeah, I was gonna say I don't know, like I mean yeah, there's just so much going on right now in the world, so like I don't know, it's like yeah, whether yeah I don't know, there's just, it's kind of like a lot to like. It feels overwhelming, but yeah, I just wanted to like say that.
Yeah, definitely. Audra? Oh, I'm sorry. It was Aleyah, and then Audra.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I appreciate the comments that everyone else is making, because I also would like to point out that I know that we have a lot of 805 people that listen because that was the original focus of the podcast. But we had a father murdered by ICE earlier in 2025 here in the 805 area, and he did not get international news coverage the same way that other people are. And so, you know, I'm really glad that we're clarifying that, you know, this is a very heartbreaking thing to happen, but I'm literally seeing social media posts on my Instagram that are like, this is the first person killed by ICE, blah, 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 blah. And it's like the humanization. No, he was definitely not white. And his name is Jaime, by the way, if anybody wants to look him up. But this is definitely not the first time that somebody has been killed by ICE. Not even the first white person to be killed by ICE, but the humanization of this situation is actively dehumanizing all the previous people who have been murdered by colonial violence. And I feel like it's like really meant to be a distraction from what is happening in Venezuela. And I think that like the fact that Trump put out a statement saying that like, you know, she deserved it, and kind of like doing a warning shot at all the other people who volunteer to do rapid response. I think it's instilling a lot of fear, basically, is my point. I think that it's meant to scare people out of wanting to volunteer to defend others from ICE and ICE raids, because that's exactly what she was doing when she was murdered. So I do think that like it's important that we mention Renee Good's name, but not to distract us from the fact that, you know, she is one of millions of people that have been murdered by colonial violence.
100%.
Yeah, well said. Audra?
Hi. I don't know how to unraise my hand. Oh, lower. There we go. Okay, got it. I am just so happy that everyone has chimed in with these comments, because I wasn't going to be the first to comment because I knew that I would kind of dictate the vibe. And I wanted to just capture that because there is so much going on right now in the world and it feels heavy. And over here in Europe, we are watching in awe and shock. And like pretty much everyone that I see on the street, because they know I'm American, not just in the street, but, you know, in my outing, in my day to day, they're like, what is happening? You know, like Europeans have turned out the American drama for a really long time because it's just been so much. And now we start to significantly experience change. And a lot of that is really scary because Europeans have been very compliant with the level of comfort of not ever considering having another war on European soil, right? Now we're at the level field of the Americans who also have never considered having a war on their soil again. So we're realizing how vulnerable we are at the moment. And the vibe in my world is super heavy. And I can only imagine how heavy it is for Americans right now because everybody's got to be traumatized. Like the events of just 2026, and we're only, January 10th? It is insane. And everybody is starting to desensitize become very numb because it's just so much. It's exhaustion, it's overload. So if anything, I would just like to take a moment as a yoga teacher to just like have a breath together and like throughout this call, if we can just be in our bodies and shift because we need to ground our energy. Collectively, this is so important right now, especially this week with the astrology transits and stuff. It's just really important that we remain in our intuition, in our senses, and out of our egos, and try to speak from a place that's more authentic. Yeah. Om Shanti. Thank you.
That was well said and very much needed. Thank you for that. I think
Thank you.
it was Courtney and then AngelMarie. Sorry, I'm kind of losing track.
I kind of forgot my train of thought. I need to take notes so that I'm not doing that. So let AngelMarie take the lead.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just kind of wanted to echo something similar to what Aleyah said. I really appreciate this panel's framework around the passing of Renee Good. Understanding that like any death, any victimization under the US war machine is one that of course is media worthy, is newsworthy. It's just more so how we are framing like what's happening to people on the streets, to our neighbors on the streets, and how we could take time to uplift other people who are also being impacted. Like you mentioned, Aleyah, at the Glass House raid, that was a raid that I was present at, and that was the first time that we had seen a Ventura County ICE agent murder one of our neighbors. As Aleyah said, he was a father, he was an uncle, he was a hard worker, and he is an immigrant from Mexico. His name is Jaime Alanis Garcia, and that happened back in July. And then before 2026 even started, on New Year's Eve, we saw an ICE agent take another life from the community. He stole the life of brother Keith Porter. Keith Porter is a US citizen, Black man from Northridge, right? So just seeing how not just Jaime, not just Keith, but now also Renee, 3 deaths in just a short period of time, recognizing that they are all by the same hand, but then also recognizing how each death is different. White supremacy catching up to itself is a contradiction that we are seeing in the system, and it should be recognized as such, versus seeing deaths like Brother Keith and Mr. Jaime. They might not necessarily be seen as contradictions within the system because they were already dehumanized to begin with on a structural level. So I really appreciate the group's like framework around it, but equally upholding all of those who are victimized under the machine.
Really well said. Thank you for all that, AngelMarie. It's beautiful. Was there anybody else that wanted to say something before we dive into the first topic? Okay, perfect.
Oh, good.
All right. So first topic is regime change and U.S. imperialism in Latin America and around the world. So first things first, the White House says the quiet part out loud. Trump just straight up told Venezuela and Maduro they're giving up 50 million barrels of oil and they're forced to give into U.S. demands. But it seems like my understanding of the situation is Maduro and the Venezuelan government were already going to comply with demands by the U.S. state apparatus, regardless, well before the raid, and the raid happened anyways. Yeah, I'll go to you, Aleyah.
Yes. So, clock it when you said the White House said the quiet part out loud, but also at the same time, like that was intentional, right? Like them, like Trump talking about us wanting to invade other countries for oil. It makes liberals who are, not necessarily thinking outside of a liberal bubble think that that is the max of the capacity of the reason why the United States government might be interfering in other countries because that's what's always been said is that that's the only reason that we got involved in Middle Eastern countries nations economics is because of oil. Like when we reduce imperialism to just wanting to extract natural resources from other countries, like this is the dehumanization thing that I was talking about earlier. Like it really takes away from the level of power that is meant to be focused on, because when Trump invaded Venezuela, and I think that's the only way that we can call it is an invasion, because that's exactly what it was. When Trump invaded Venezuela, like this was around the same time as him making international news headlines for raping a 13-year-old. This is at the same time of Venezuela being one of the most outspoken opponents to Israel's siege in Gaza and in Palestine. Like this is not just about oil. Trump is saying that it's about oil. That way we can get Democrats and liberals to be like, see guys, it's just natural resources that they care about. When in fact, it's actually brown bodies and labor. There's much more exploitation that comes than just natural resources. They consider human bodies to be natural resources as well. And by us continuing the conversation by saying that it is focusing on oil, we are allowing them the ability to distract us from the reality of the situation, which is that this has always been about power and colonialism. You know what I mean? And as long as we can just keep the conversation focused on like the true meaning of what US imperialism looks like in Latin America, because this is not something that is new. And I don't want us to think about the fact that, that Venezuela has one of the largest natural supplies of oil in the world. And that's the reason that we're there. Like two things can be true at the same time. Like, yes, absolutely. Venezuela has a lot of oil, and definitely this comes at a point in time where the United States government's economy is struggling. And so they're going to do what they can to boost their economy without having to walk back the tariffs that Trump put in place over a year ago. But I also don't want us to lose sight of the fact that, like families on the ground are losing lives and mothers, you know what I mean? And aunts and uncles and cousins and things like that, just because of oil.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I definitely agree that it's well beyond just oil. I also think that Trump wants to manufacture a crisis at the border by invading Venezuela. I think that's 100% what it's about. He knows that he's losing even his MAGA support among popularity for issues. So I definitely think that's an intention behind it as well. Yes, Kaitlyn.
Yeah. I kind of also think it's not just about the oil, because Venezuela has the most amount of oil, and that's what Trump is saying. But it's I don't know if you when I have been looking into it. It doesn't seem like, I don't know. There's always something else. There's always something deeper behind it, and yeah, I don't know. I agree. It's not just about the oil. I feel like it's kind of maybe like a message to oh, we can do this, so we can do this anywhere. Trump is also threatening Colombia and Mexico right now too. I think Greenland, obviously. And a lot of people are saying it's gonna cost so much money to invest in new infrastructure to get the oil out of the ground anyways, that it wouldn't really be financially profitable for the oil companies to really go out of the way so much, for us to invade Venezuela only for oil doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of other resources too. And I also think, because they are saying China and Russia, I think I'm kind of thinking Trump and the administration doesn't want China and Russia to have access to all those resources either. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I don't know. What does anybody else think?
It's Waseem, Courtney, and then AngelMarie.
Well, I just want to say that I agree with Aleyah and AngelMarie, as they said before, that there's obviously bigger things that are happening than just about oil and natural resources like that. There's also that labor component to be able to extract labor, let's say from people in Venezuela and those places, and uh, yeah, and there's always those extra components to it. And it was for me as an atmospheric scientist, I actually looked into this a little bit, and I found that the US is sort of also using oil as a way to establish its hegemony around the world, as a way to sort of monopolize the energy and the labor around that as well. So it's not just like, oh, we just want to extract oil. It's like, no, we want to have all the oil so that way we can control, who gets it or not, because they're trying to compete with China on, clean energy and things like that. So it's more so about, so there's a global politics aspect to that as well. Now, and I want to expand on what Kaitlyn said earlier, is that like the oil in Venezuela and about, private companies coming in and to extract it or whatever. And, you know, uh, one thing I want to mention is that the oil in Venezuela is not like the sweet oil. It's like the tar sands, like what it is in Alberta. So it's actually really, really expensive for them to extract regardless. And so when you hear, like their famous opposition leader, like Maria Menchana Corando, say that they're gonna, be beneficial by privatizing all of that or whatever. I think she just doesn't see the reality of that, is that they're gonna have to, they have to put money towards it. And so I'm not really surprised that Donald Trump would make, like a small deal like that with Venezuela to have collect those barrels of oils simply because of those costs. And here in Canada, they're already like spending billions and billions of dollars subsidizing even private companies here to extract from the tar sands. And so it would be safe to say that the story would be the same with Venezuela. Like they would have to spend money to extract it, because it's not profitable for them until the price of oil in US dollars is like well over 100 per barrel. So, and from where it is now, like if they extract more of it, that's actually going to push the price down even more. So it's going to be even so it's going to be even worse for them in that case. So I'm not really surprised that that was the deal, whether there's like a deal for them after that, you know, ridiculous invasion and kidnapping of Maduro and things like that. And not really surprised about that. And I do follow a journalist. Her name is Maureen, and she's like called the Real Godiva Goddess. She's on Instagram, and she generally does a lot of analysis about the Middle East, but she's also doing a lot in the US and everywhere else. And one thing she mentioned is that like China and Russia, apparently when they send ships there, those ships that they captured that had the Russian flags on them, apparently those were like spoofs
Mm.
that did not contain like actual oil, because when they actually inspected them, they didn't really find anything in there, according to them. So that's something that I heard, let's say, in the past couple days, but we'll see whether we'll see how that how that materializes. But from what I see, it seems like they knew this was going to happen, and there was definitely some sort of deal that was made for this. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But all in all, I want to just say one more thing, like that also refers to what Aleyah and AngelMarie said earlier during the introductions, is that with all that's going on and whatever, we can't pick and choose who gets to have human rights in this world, and we gotta really look at everything, in a very, not only in a broad sense, but also in a very realistic sense as well.
Courtney and then AngelMarie.
Hello. Yeah, just kind of bouncing off of all of what we've just discussed. This was part of Project 2025. Like, they want to take over the Western Hemisphere. That's why they're also threatening Greenland right now. And it's Western imperialism. It's, climate change that they all know is actually happening. They want to be able to take over the passage of the North Pole when all the ice melts, because it's pretty much melting. It's going to become a huge trade route. And until we have a massive overhaul in any type of major industry, I don't think that's going to change, especially because here, at least in the United States, I disagree. I don't think they have any intention of moving away from oil at this time or investing in clean energy. I know there's people here that do want to, but I don't think anybody in this administration is. They're really just worried about keeping control of any type of oil sources. And I know that's not just what Venezuela is, but I know a lot of it has to do with that, or with, oil. But yeah, I think we're too heavily reliant on it. And it's also with the lobbyists and stuff. I mean, the oil executives knew that they were going to go kidnap Maduro before anybody else in the government did. And these people aren't government officials. I would assume that's not something that should be happening, but that doesn't seem to stop this administration from doing anything like that. Yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I actually have a whole segment where we're going to talk about the Arctic and Greenland, so I'm looking forward to that. AngelMarie.
Thank you. I'm hearing that we all have a combination of different observations for why there would be an invasion on Venezuela. And I don't think that I disagree with any of the motivations that have been shared already. I think for me, questions that I've been trying to answer for myself lately is there are so many different motivations for this invasion. It's just which one do we prioritize right now? Which one do we give more attention? Which one can we contribute to the most? And I think that goes kind of back to what you were saying, Jordan, right out the gate, kind of had 50% of the work done for us already when the president just called it what it is. We're here for the oil. I think when we look at other examples of U.S. imperialism, we do not ever invade or colonize. I hate saying we, y'all. I don't claim the American. The U.S. Will not ever just go and invade and colonize another nation, just for vibes. They're there to extract something. They can extract labor. Like they do from the Philippines, for example, in addition to extracting material resources such as fruit, such as rubber, such as tin, but also looking at the U.S.'s colonization of the Philippines, it's also a strategical point geographically. The U.S. is able to take an advantageous point against the Asian continent, with the Philippines kind of being like that barrier between the U.S. and Asia. You could kind of look at the Caribbean islands the same way. It's like the US's access point to be able to access the global south, to access South America, to access Latin America. So I think looking at the invasion on Venezuela, we can call it multiple things, and all things can stand true simultaneously. It is an extraction of resources, specifically oil. It is a shift in labor. It is a message. It's also a global message, kind of like what you were saying earlier, Aleyah. It's happening at the same time as so many other things. It's a redirection of attention from Epstein files. It is a geographical point, also happening simultaneously that I don't think has been brought up yet is what's happening in Iran. There have been many anti-government attempts at coups, mobilizations happening in Iran right now. And when we understand what the Swana region, the Southwest Africa, Southwest Asia, North African area offers the United States, it's also oil. So seeing like all these things happen at the same time, in addition to recognizing it as an extraction of resources, I also do believe it to be like a message to the rest of the world that being late stage capitalism means being in fascism. That also means that our economy is dying. So it is a very necessary step, I believe, for the United States to secure these extra means for non-green energy, because that's the only thing that it knows how to do.
Fuck yeah.
So true. I just want to add on that it's like it's just his audacity, you know, for me, like it's Jakarta 2.0, and that's the whole thing about Trump, right? Is that he's so honest. If it was Kamala in office right now, we wouldn't have known about it, and people would be like, "Oh yeah, stuff is going on over there." But Trump is just so blatant with what he's doing, and instead of it going under the radar, we know full well. So it's the only, unfortunately, I hate to say bright side, is that we act like we see clearly what he's about. He says exactly what he's doing, what his intentions are. Yes, and you're so right, AngelMarie, that it's so many things. It's the logistics, it's a message, it's distraction, it's all these things, right? But it is also, as you said, with about, you know, it being definitely about the oil and regime change. I know that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, Maduro was a dictator, but obviously one dictator blatantly kidnapping another dictator doesn't make our government suddenly legitimate and make us the good guys, you know. Even Kamala Harris said that, you know, she is excited about being the most lethal. I know I say this a lot, Jordan usually gets the quote right, but she is, you know, pleased to be the most lethal. Go ahead and say it.
No, I mean, you basically got it. She's constantly talking about how we need to have, we, the US, once again, not us, the actions of states around the world are not any indication of the people. But yeah, she says the US needs to have the most lethal military in the world.
Yeah, so that right there, I mean, they are pretty blatant about world domination, you know, so it's not even just the Western Hemisphere, it's all of it. It's all logistical planning for what they could do next as far as transportation, as was already mentioned too. So it's really messed up because after reading the Jakarta Method, you know, I'm just so shook that like, okay, hello, I don't know if people are reading this book because it's already been done, you know, not just in Indonesia and in Cuba with the Bay of Pigs and all this stuff, you know, it's just like, okay, well, they're doing it right in front of our eyes. And it's much more terrifying actually than people realize, because if he has the audacity to just take one, you know, leader of a country so blatantly and then claim the rights to the oil and just control of the land, yet allowing Benjamin Netanyahu to visit the White House, who's wanted in 124 countries, you know, come and visit, you know, with welcome arms, is just insanity. It's like really crazy to watch right now.
Yeah, real quick, before you talk, Aleyah, I just wanted to mention there actually already was a recent coup attempt in Venezuela in the first Trump administration with the Green Berets. And people have just forgotten about that because of everything that's happened in the years prior since then. I didn't fucking forget about that shit. That was a Bay of Pigs. Go ahead, Aleyah.
Okay. The only thing that I wanted to add on was just because I do, like, while I recognize that, you know, we are not necessarily the government of the states that we reside in, as people who reside in this state, we hold a certain level of privilege and therefore responsibility to participate in actions that actively go against the government. And the reason that governments like Trump are able, and administrations like Trump and Kamala are able to get away with these imperialist policies, because, I mean, Kamala is just as much as an imperialist. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot of Democrats that are like, if Kamala was in office right now, like we wouldn't be having this. Like, you guys are so upset about what's happening in Venezuela because you guys refused to vote for a woman, like as if that's the reason that we didn't want another imperialist in office. But regardless, what I wanted to bring up was just the fact that, you know, there are so many actions that we take in our day-to-day lives that allow our government to be able to have this level of control over us. And us just simply being like, well, we aren't our government, we're absolving ourselves of any and all responsibility. And I think, not to like start talking about, you know, environmentalism, because it's a little off topic, but is it really? I think it's a little on topic too. But I think oftentimes when we talk about things as basic as like recycling, people are always saying like, why does it matter if I recycle if it's the big corporations that are responsible for 96% of the pollution around the world? That's true. Corporations are absolutely responsible for that 96% of the pollution around the world, but are you still shopping at those institutions? You know, absolutely. And I think that like a lot of people are out here complaining about what's happening around the world while actively participating in the systems that allow things like this to happen in the first place. And so, you know, to us on the panel, and also to like any listeners, like, or anybody that knows anybody, like, feel free to always call people out for the level of lack of action that we take. Our inaction speaks volumes just as much as our action does. And so I see a lot of people that are, you know, willing to show up for protests for Palestine, but not the Congo and not Sudan, etc. You know what I mean? Like, I see people that, like, I've seen a lot of PSL people, you know what I mean, show up for protests for what's happening in Venezuela, but then they disrupt local leftist activist actions. Like, we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot just as much as the systems are doing to us. And I think a lot of that has to do with where our mind thinks about these issues. And as soon as we begin placing 100% of the blame on people like Trump and Trump's administrations or government institutions overall, we take away the fact that we as an individual, and therefore we as a collective of individuals, hold a ridiculous amount of power that could prevent things like this from happening in the first place. I can list those actions too, but I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, well said. I agree with you. I think that it is easy for a lot of us just to have general cop-outs to prevent action against the state and also just to lift up generally oppressed people. So yeah, I really like all the points that you made there. Kaitlyn Sage.
Yeah, those are good points. I do agree with you, Aleyah. I kind of feel like, me personally right now, I feel like I'm also going through a lot, so I'm not out as much, like protesting as much as I could. I feel like, so I mean, yeah, I feel like that's just something I need to work on, and I mean, this is definitely the time for it. So yeah, just wanted to like repeat that. And yeah, AngelMarie, I also agree with your points about like Venezuela. Like, yeah, it could be like a lot of different things right now, and I'm kind of surprised by how much like a lot of like liberal media, like CBS. I've been watching like some news lately on, mostly on YouTube, like CBS and like random CNN, and they'll all kind of agree with like these talking points about how like murder needs to go, and like how like it was totally fine for America to do what we did, what the military did, for and go and kidnap Maduro. And I'm just surprised at how like a lot of the liberal media is very much like not really offering much resistance to what the the yeah, like the Trump administration is basically saying and how they're selling it. So yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I just want to say that I'm surprised how many people are just repeating those talking points and all. And yeah, I mean that's something like, yeah, a lot of people don't agree with Maduro and call him a dictator. When the more I look into like the whole Chavez regime and like the Bolivarian Revolution and all that, and like I know it's definitely like something I don't want to say cannot be criticized at all, but I definitely think that there's a lot of the media build up to this point of like getting the military to kidnap Maduro and try and do this regime change with the upper classes of Venezuela. Basically, a lot of it, the groundwork was laid in like calling Chavez a dictator and Maduro a dictator for some years before. And yeah, I just want to say that I know people like can criticize the regime or like the Bolivarian Revolution, but I definitely think a lot of the economic woes that they're going through also are a result of the sanctions that America has been putting on them too. So yeah, it just all like, yeah, I think what we're doing to Venezuela as a country is like really bad. And yeah, I just want to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of really good points there. So the first thing I wanted to read to you guys is as of January 8th, Trump said in an interview on Fox News that the U.S. will conduct land strikes against the cartels inside of Mexico. So with that being said, do you think that the world is now witnessing a darker era of U.S. imperialism and regime change, or that's worse than traditional U.S. imperialism, or is it more or less the same? Yes or no? Thoughts? Aleyah.
Okay, so I was super excited for you to get to this question on the panel itself, because I was talking about this with some of my sisters in the Brown Berets, and one of the things that, because as soon as we saw that tweet, we were like, the whole group chat blew up, and we all just started talking to each other about it, because obviously many of us have many family members in Mexico, etc. So this is very personal, and to answer the question specifically as to are we witnessing a darker period of time? No, I don't think so. Things like this have always been ongoing. I think we are simply, it is more visible to us as a result of social media and access to technology. I think that the increased access we have to being able to see like what's happening in Palestine, for example, right? Like Palestinians have been living under siege by Israel for almost 100 years, like 70-ish years, you know what I mean? 60 to 70 years. So for us to go from seeing what is happening in Palestine to knowing that it's been happening for so long, I think it made it so much easier for young people and the college movement to come to terms with the fact that Palestinians are experiencing settler colonialism very similar to those who live in Mexico, or those, or AKA us settlers here in the United States. And so I think the world is going to see that it looks like a darker period of time simply because we have access to seeing what is happening. But people who have been on the ground, I think it was Audra that said it earlier, like when you get your news from people who live on the ground instead of getting it from the media, you'll know that this has already been going on. We've already been seeing attacks in person to communities unrelated to the cartel because they're being punished for the cartel's behavior, right? And the cartel does not just exist in Mexico. And the cartel didn't come to exist in Mexico until the United States government created vacuums of power that allow the existence of cartels in Mexico to rise to power in the first place. So when we're talking about the issues of, U.S. imperialism and what we're seeing around the world, not only what's happening in Venezuela, but now Mexico and also Iran, like we're seeing it because it's on social media, because it's being shoved into our faces. But we grew up under 9/11, and therefore we grew up under the attacks, the unnecessary, relentless, ongoing attacks on children in the Middle East. So when it happens, honestly, we could tie this all back to Renee Good from the beginning of the conversation. When it happens against brown bodies, it's not going to take place in the news. The only reason that we're seeing this take place in the news now is because Trump's the one in office, and he can't help but tell people what he's doing. He can't help but brag about what he's doing because he wants to take credit for it. If it was Kamala in office, we would not be hearing about it as often unless you had friends and family that were actively in Mexico telling you about what was going on. So it's not that it's a darker period. It's just the fact that we have somebody in office who wants to brag about his attacks in other countries, who's willing to share this with people who don't care about politics. Because that's what's happening, is people who are not interested in politics are being forced to swallow political content 24/7 from the news. You know what I mean? People who used to be able to shove their head in the sand and close their ears and go, no, I'm not listening to the news. They don't have that ability to anymore. It's all over social media. Their friends and family are talking about it. You can't walk into a Baskin Robbins to get ice cream and not see it on the news, on the TVs behind you. You know what I mean? It's impossible to ignore what is happening in the world right now, just as much as it was impossible to ignore what we were doing in the Middle East immediately after 9/11. So I just think that we are seeing, I think it's a brighter light of what we're seeing, not necessarily that we're entering a darker period. I think that if we were truly entering a darker period, we wouldn't be knowing about it. We wouldn't, if it was something so that Trump thought was like that serious, the US government would not be telling Trump that it was happening, because then he'd be outing it to everybody. It would just be taking place without Trump knowing about it, and therefore without us knowing about it. And only the people that are actively living it would know about it. And what we would be hearing is rumors from the ground. And media has always treated reports from the ground as, in school, we learn it as primary sources. But for some reason, the media treats it as if those forms of sources are unreliable, simply because it's not, facts on a sheet of statistics, right? It's real people talking about real experiences that they've had. And all of a sudden, because those people are of a darker skin tone than the average person in the United States, their word and their truth of what they actually lived through certainly becomes something that's unimportant, or therefore, like I said, not actually reliable. We know for a fact that it's reliable because we've been hearing about it for years. It's been happening. The United States government has been attacking communities of color in Mexico because of the cartels. Trump is just tweeting about it now. That's the difference.
Courtney, AngelMarie, and Kaitlyn Sage.
Thank you for that. You put it so eloquently. I feel like anytime I try to talk, I sound like a doof, but yeah, social media it's definitely the reason we're able to see it. I definitely agree with everybody who's already shared their thoughts that like, it's not a darker moment in American imperialism. It's definitely just showing what it's always been. I mean, if you've followed history, and yeah, it's just in your face. And Trump is just that like archetype, kind of like ripping it all open for us, for the whole world to watch, which is, obviously horrible to watch. But yeah, I think social media is also a great conduit with activism, and I'm grateful for that. But tying it back to, say, like in Iran, where they currently are under a media blackout, I think a lot of us have to think about that possibility at some point, like maybe, and figuring out how, we can get, I don't know, mutual aid groups together in our own communities and things like that, which is something I definitely know I need to do myself. But yeah, just a little thought that I was having while we were discussing this.
AngelMarie?
Thank you. I also think following the pattern that we have of like connecting it to other things that are happening simultaneously. So the same time that our president is using cartel as this big scary buzzword, is at the exact same time that we're seeing daily ICE raids like in our communities, state sanctioned terrorism in our communities. I very much understand his threat on Mexico to be a further justification of the ICE terrorism that we've been seeing in the communities. I see it as a further attempt to dehumanize our Mexican neighbors, and recognizing it, like for me, I kind of similar to the invasion of Venezuela. There are many different layers and truths to the threats on Mexico, but I think for me, the biggest thing that I'm recognizing to be a motivation and things that we can actively go against is like the propaganda aspect of it. Just like Aleyah was saying, under fascism, there's something happening all the time, every day. People are going to hear about regardless. So it's that much more important for our president to jump on the gun, to get a hold of the narrative as soon as possible. I don't think it's a coincidence that it happened right after, the murder of Keith Porter during the time of the murder of Renee Good. I also think it's important to point out that the United States bombed Nigeria on Christmas on December 25th, and the Nigerian people didn't get a warning on Twitter, about that. So I think that the threats, should be taken seriously because it's Trump. Like, it's not something that we could just sweep under the rug. Like, it very much could happen. But understanding, like, why would he project that kind of why would he project that kind of narrative onto the American people right now? I think it's to further justify what's going on around ICE.
Kaitlyn Sage.
Yeah, those are great points, AngelMarie and Courtney. Yeah, going through like a media blackout like they're going through in Iran. I could totally. I mean, depending on how things go, that's a possibility. And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, what I was gonna mention about what Aleyah was saying about like what they're doing now and what like Trump is like saying, like very openly what we're doing. Yeah, that's already happening. That has been happening, and yeah, I mean, I just watched a documentary the other day about how like special forces teams are. Yeah, they have been in Mexico, like working with the military there and like police forces there and whatnot, like going after people and whatnot. So it is definitely something that has been happening, and but like always, the drug cartels, that's just like their excuse, and yeah, they're not doing anything to stop like anything related to drugs. Like that's the whole thing too. But yeah, it's definitely been going on for a while, and I guess now it's good that more people are kind of being aware of it, so we can see more of the lies, I think, these days. But yeah.
Courtney.
Yeah, and just going back to ICE, and I just want to remind everybody that ICE trains with the IDF over in Israel, and they just train to dehumanize people, and everything that they do over there will come back to us, and we're seeing it. Obviously, they're you know haven't quite gotten to the part where they're having dogs sexually assault people yet, but who knows what's happening in the ICE facilities, where they're keeping people and disappearing people. Not to sound like a crazy person, but yeah, the point of the IDF soldier is to dehumanize any Palestinian that they encounter, and that's exactly what every ICE officer does to any person they're encountering on the street now. So,
Well, racial profiling is officially illegal by the Supreme Court. So there's that. I wanted to just point out, I think I agree with you guys, this is old school, traditional US imperialism. It's about crushing the left in Latin America and geopolitical control over the region. Another reason I think that it's traditional old school is because it's the same methodology, right? In Vietnam, it was about containing communism. In Iraq, it was about so-called liberation and freedom and democracy. It's the same old bullshit to take resources and take over control over areas, and then also to basically exert cultural genocide too. Waseem?
Yes. I agree with what you're saying, Jordan, as well as Aleyah and AngelMarie, that what is happening. Like this has been happening for a long time, ever since before World War II. Like the U.S. maintained what they called an isolationist policy. Then ever since World War II, after that, they started the ones sort of running the world in a sense. And what they are really afraid of right now is other countries having that influence over them, right? A country like the United States is not going to go down like that without possibly some kind of war, like with this kind of violence. And that is a scary thing to say, but and how they do it is by following that imperialist playbook, and they've been doing it since Indonesia in the 1950s all the way up till today. It's been the same thing regardless. And now, with social media and with everything, we're all able to film it. We're all able to see what it looks like. Right? We can't be ignorant anymore to what's going on. And I think that is what they're afraid of. Right now, they're wanting to spend more on expanding, let's say, ICE and IDF propaganda for Israel and things like that. That's what they're doing because they're scared that they don't have that we are actually starting to have a conscience against this, and that's a good and I got to say that's a good thing. Now, and the ones that are pushing for this imperialist violence, like as Aleyah said, these are the people that support it. They brag about it, right? And they've been even bragging about it for a long time, like with Augusto Pinochet, where Frederick Hayek even said, this is a necessary evil, or something like that. And a lot of the people on the right sort of copy that sort of phrase, like as if it's like they engrave it into themselves, and so they follow with that, and so they and because of that, they also like the shit that is happening with this. So and from what and so it's and so really, like, this has been, like, as they said, around for a long time. And but what they're afraid of now is this idea that more people who aren't on their side, who have been on the fence, are starting to see, you know, the logical, you know, rational, in their rational view, just how evil this stuff is, just how ridiculously dehumanizing this stuff is. And was everything from the genocide in Palestine to like and then connecting it to what's happening in Sudan and Congo, and seeing just how much these actors are getting away with a lot of this violence. And that's something that a lot of people are agreeing to change, want to change, and want to see different in this world going forward. And yeah, so that might, and I'm seeing a lot of content creators saying, they should treat the United States, like the government and all that, in the United States, like as if they are Israel, like as if they are, a Zionist regime kind of thing, like that, something like that, right? Because I mean, it is full of fascists and whatever, and Zionists and whatever else that that believe in that hold that kind of power firm, and but they're really afraid of people emancipating themselves out of that. So, yeah.
I also wanted to add about what I think it was Court that was mentioning it earlier. Maybe I might have been wrong about that memory of it. Like, we don't even know the types of atrocities that are happening that they've been trained to do by the IDF. Yeah, that was you. Okay, great. We definitely do know ICE has been around for a really long time. People have been disappearing for a really long time. There are already entire projects that have been put out documenting the experiences that like women and children in particular have had to experience and endure under the torture of Border Patrol and ICE agents. Like, I mean, there was a book put out by a Border Patrol agent who, like, I can't even remember if it was like fiction or if it was a true story. I just remember throwing up when I like got halfway through the book. But like basically it was a Border Patrol agent that talked about his experiences, how he got the job because he just wanted a job in his town because he lives on the border, and how he was Mexican and thought like, okay, well, you know, like I'm obviously going to be like one of the better Border Patrol agents and I'll be able to support my community and like, you know, maybe make it so that it's like not so bad of an experience for the other people that I have to like basically kidnap and attack. And then he realized the longer he was in the system, the more that he was quite literally just a weapon used by the system to harm his own people, to harm his own community. And he was having like nightmare dreams every single night where like his, oh, I see what you mean. I'm sorry, I read your comment. But he was having dreams at night like of like basically like his teeth falling out from like the stress of having to work a job where he's like literally attacking people and watching his coworkers like rape women that are just trying to cross the border with their kids, etc. And so, you know, any atrocity that you think could be happening, I guarantee is already happening. There's stories coming out right now of families that that are like that were held for, you know, like 45 days and then released, and they talked about how they didn't have access to food or water like almost the entire time. You know what I mean? Like living in our prison system, as terrible as our prison system is, living in our prison system is still better than being under the boot of ICE or Border Patrol. They're considered one of like the most horrific forms of like domestic abusers in this country by far. We often talk about, you know, Chicago PD, NYPD, LAPD, but like when we're talking about the true atrocities that take place in this country, it's almost always Border Patrol and ICE. And it's not like ICE has been around long enough for them to create any kind of reputation for themselves that's not horrific, right?
Fucking 2003.
2003, literally because of what happened in 9/11. And so the justification that was used to attack brown bodies like in the Middle East is the same justification that's used to attack brown bodies locally here. And one thing that I want to mention, because this is really, really important to me, is that we are deporting people and families whose indigenous roots tie back to the land that white settlers are currently occupying. The white ICE agents and white Border Patrol agents are actively kicking out people whose lineages go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years to this land right now, here today. And so
they didn't cross the border.
They didn't cross the border crossed them. Exactly. And so it's very frustrating to have conversations with conservatives and moderates and even liberals about like quote unquote stricter borders when people are out here being like, oh my gosh, we need to strengthen our borders. We need to get rid of the fucking border. Actually, the border should not exist in the first place. We lived as human beings alongside each other for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years without these, like, literally, like when people talk about how Santa Claus is made up, I'm like, do you realize that 90% of what we live in society is as made up as Santa Claus? Except that Santa Claus actually has like a historical figure, like in his past.
Based in reality.
Yeah, Santa Claus is actually more realistic than many of the laws that we follow today, including Border Patrol, including
border lines.
Border lines, Border Patrol, federal taxes. We are not obligated to pay federal taxes. There is no law that says that we have to pay federal taxes. We pay federal taxes because we are so scared of the IRS coming after us. The IRS who just appointed a CEO. The same IRS that just appointed a CEO, and we're scared of those guys. Like, come on, bro. Like, there's jokes. Like, there's a lot of jokes on the internet by young people in my generation who say, like, oh, you know, men used to go to war, you know, and now they're like in this like sassy man apocalypse that we're experiencing. Okay, true, but also
now they all want to be DJs.
Yeah, now they just want to be DJs, right? And they want to go up and on the tall parts of the club, all the what are they called?
The platforms.
The platforms, the raised platforms at the clubs.
Oh my fucking god!
It's more than just that. Like when you think about it, unfortunately, many of us are the men on the raised platforms. We're out here scared of the IRS. We're out here scared of like these. Oh, I remember, this is a point I was going to make in my previous comment about I'm sure you guys probably remember the specific term, but there's a specific term of like basically like when you give up before you even try. Something consent. Like actualized consent or something like that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of what it is right now.
You're not talking about manufacturing consent, are you?
It's not
Informed consent?
What'd you call it?
Is it informed consent?
No. It might not even be
what's
consent,
that mean?
but it's basically it doesn't matter what the word is, but the point is that many people give up before they fight back. Like, it's so easy for the government.
Fatalism? Defeatism?
No, but you're on like the line of like definitely what that word is. I should have Googled it before I came on the panel, but because I knew it was going to be my primary point when I came on the panel. But basically, it's about how we are so manufactured. If you want to talk about manufactured consent, we're so manufactured. Maybe it is manufactured consent. We're so manufactured from such a young age to just consent to all these terrible things. It starts with us saying the Pledge of Allegiance in elementary school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just obey.
Oh,
Or like obey your elders.
indoctrination.
Yes, right? Like it's the indoctrination of believing that we have to do things just because we said so. And you know, I'm not necessarily like a self-identified anarchist or Marxist or Leninist or any of those things, because you know, I'm not going to subscribe myself to systems. I subscribe myself to people, and people have existed long before these systems have, right? But these systems describe people that have, and the ways that we have governed ourselves as communities for thousands of years, long before the words themselves like Marx came into play. But before that, it was totally normal for there to be a period of time in your childhood where you defied your parents, because you need to figure out what it is that you should be doing and should not be doing. Like, I am somebody who, and this is why most people would probably call me an anarchist more than a Marxist, but like, there's a reason why the younger you are and the more defiant you are, the more intent adults are on quote unquote breaking you, to making you pliable, to making you force yourself to participate in the systems. You know what I mean? To the fact where we have psychotherapy out here diagnosing people, saying like, oh, you have, you know, anxiety and you have BPD and you're schizophrenic and you're this and you're that. For 10,000 years, that was like the oracle. That was the storyteller. You know what I mean? That person that you're saying has like diagnosed like severe ADHD because they can't sit still in class. They weren't meant to sit still in class. They were meant to play the drums, to perform for all of us while we ate dinner. That's
even insomnia, things
yes.
like that.
Even insomnia, like, okay, because we're not following our body's natural rhythms. Like, like we have, and this is as a result of colonialism, we have detached our bodies and our culture and society so far away from the natural rhythm of the earth that we reside on, that of course we're going to suffer from all these, like, you know, whatever disorders, these colonially named disorders, right? And so it's like, the more that we ourselves as a society participate in these systems of coloniality by identifying ourselves with ADHD or identifying ourselves with BPD, the more that we, you know, talk about daylight savings times, like, fuck all that. We need to be significantly more defiant as a nation. And that is the only way that the United States empire will fall, because there is no like real existence of the United States government. The government is as fake as Santa Claus. You know what I mean? Yeah, decolonizing the calendar. I would love to listen to that episode. But like, yeah, anyways, the point that I'll end with here is just that, as AngelMarie said, like, the whole point of these attacks in Latin America and in other nations is to justify ICE's terror on our country. Because as we know with Renee Good, ICE is not just focusing on undocumented people. They're going after anybody that defies Trump's will. And Trump's will is the same will of the founding fathers of this nation. And to think that the founding fathers of our nation were any better than Trump is today is straight up propaganda. Those fools owned slaves. You think that they were better than Trump? Be so serious. You don't own another person and are still somehow a good person.
All American presidents are war criminals.
Every single American president is a war criminal because you cannot be the president of a fake war-bearing nation without being a war criminal. The United States government does not exist. Therefore, any systems that we participate in that allow the United States to continue existing, we are just as complicit in the actions that takes place against our people and, you know, the people of our neighbors. So therefore, it is all 100% our responsibility to say fuck you and fuck that to anything and everything that actively causes harm, including, like you said, the calendar, Jordan, including things like believing in ADHD and Western forms of psychotherapy, right? Like, we need to get more in touch with, like, I guarantee every single person here has some form of indigeneity to them from your ancestors. And I'm pleading you and all of our listeners to get more in touch with whatever culture you come from, because I guarantee those people were living a much more harmonious life with nature than you are today. And that is the cause of your depression. That is the cause of your anxiety. And when you realize that, dude, maybe I don't need to like drown myself with drugs that my therapist gave me when I was 12 years old, when I got diagnosed with ADHD. Maybe I should need to play the fucking drums. Like, yeah, I really hope you find that freedom, because the only way ICE and Trump and the United States empire is going to continue to terrorize us is if we give consent to participate in that system. We are complicit, and by removing our complicity, by boycotting things like Shell and Chevron, and, you know, voting for candidates that are supportive of, you know, Israel, even if they're anti-ICE, fuck that. You can't be those two things. You can't say you support Israel and not support ICE. If you support Israel, you support ICE. And if you support ICE, I guarantee you support Israel. Because there's no two ways to look at colonialism and think that one is good and the other isn't.
Same exact fucking thing. All well said. All on point, as usual. Kaitlyn Sage.
I just had a quick question for Aleyah, because when you said, did you say that we don't have to pay federal taxes? Because I kind of thought that wasn't the the I don't know, like the 20th Amendment or something, like the income tax. I was wondering, do we not really, we don't have to pay the federal tax?
I'll answer this super quick, and then we can move on to the other panelists. But I think Court has an answer as well. So state taxes are written in the state constitutions that if you live in the state, you have to pay state taxes. That's like why we pay state taxes. And honestly, your state taxes guarantee, if you live in California, go to supporting you more than any other taxes that you pay do. But there is no law that requires like naturalized citizens or American residents or anybody that resides within the United States to pay federal taxes. When you sign paperwork, like, you know, what is it, like 1099 or 1090 or whatever, like you consent to paying taxes and paying it for the rest of your life. And if you want to get out of that, you can send an email to the IRS that says, I would like to be exempt from federal taxes moving forward, and they can't do anything about it. I have books. I can drop the link, but there is a free book on YouTube as well that teaches you how to do it for free by yourself. And then, of course, there's companies that you could pay to do it for you too.
I would be interested to know more about that. I guess I'll look it up on YouTube. Wait, isn't income tax? Isn't that federal?
So any income tax can go to federal, state, and local. It's not limited to just one. If you want to opt out of taxes, you have to file your own taxes. And so, like, for example, like if you work in the state of California, for example, you can request a breakdown to see what % of your taxes is going where. And it'll tell you like 10% of these taxes are going to like Medi-Cal or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you're able to see the breakdown if you want. But if you wanted to opt out of that, all you have to do is ask your employer to not take taxes out of your paycheck and say, I would like to pay and file taxes on my own. And then you'll get 100% of the money from your paycheck directly into your hands. And then from there, you can decide whether, you want to pay taxes or not pay taxes. I always pay my state taxes. Go Cali.
That's good to know. I'm gonna look,
I'll go to Waseem, and then I have to go to another topic. or another question rather, on the same topic.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll try and be as quick as possible. So, yeah, and I agree with what Aleyah said before about, let's say, the settler and colonialism, about especially with how they, you know, exactly was how, was a aspect of ICE already kidnapping indigenous people and sending them away. And then just tying that to, just how those settlers, they don't have really a history on this land. There's like people who already have thousands of years on this land, and they have a long sustained culture through that. And I've mentioned some First Nations, indigenous peoples where I live at the beginning of this podcast, and they too have more rights than anybody, to claim as a ancestral heritage to where they live. And it really, clicked into my mind that a lot of settler colonial history, whether it's Zionism or any of the, or any of, let's say, the colonialization of, let's say, North America by Europeans and things like that, and how they established their means. And the way they claim that, that they are authentically, American or Middle Eastern or whatever, it's based a lot on pseudo history, in my opinion. A lot of pseudo history, and even pseudo archaeology in some cases. So, and it really just hits the nail on the head, especially with what's happening in Palestine. Like a lot of these Zionists who are European, right, mostly European, they claim that they are more indigenous than everybody else in the region. They claim that they have a certain heritage that is more authentic than everybody else there. And they base it off of a religious point of view. They say that, the Bible or the Tanakh says something like that, when in fact there's absolutely like no archaeological evidence to show that those stories exist. And most of it is frankly just mythology that was ripped off from the Babylonians and other civilizations around, all over the place. So how can you tell that these are the real authentic things? But the way they do it is that sorry, somebody said something in the chat here. I'll just okay. Yeah. And so it's really reinforced because they believe in these religions that tell them that they are, have this spiritual guarantee in a sort of way. And you see that a lot on not just with Zionists, but people on the right wing as well do that, especially even in the US. They say that, this is our God-given rights. Well, God did not write the Constitution, first of all. And second of all, those constitutions were written by those, slave owner founding fathers, right? And so what makes you think that, a piece of it's just literally a piece of paper, what they're saying. So, and someone just mentioned, like, every genocide was done in the name of God. Every genocide was done in the name of telling people that they are more moral than everybody else. And that's what the IDF does. They say that they're the most moral people in the world. When in fact, if you look at history, there's no such thing as a moral army. No such thing. Because morality is subjective.
Moral army is an oxymoron.
Yeah, and it really depends on your morals, unless if you, right? And so how can you claim morality when everybody can't even agree on it in the first place? There's really no way. And so you can't claim any of that because there's no such thing as that. But they justify it based on, but that's how they justify it. And that's And that's how colonialism works, is they've based them off of these either religious or just pseudo-scientific, pseudo-historical mythologies and moralities that just that uphold these kinds of hierarchies and that uphold this kind of racism that seeks including capitalism, which, by the way, if people haven't realized, capitalism was basically founded from slavery, by the way, first of all. So a lot of the production and labor and everything from it all came from slavery and feudalism beforehand. So so it's all really connected. It's really all just the same kind of value system. And for us on the left, they hate us so much because we are against that. And I think if we can really, and I think like encouraging a lot of people, especially, young people, like we mentioned before, like we said, how adults sometimes can be a bit of a barrier, in getting people involved, getting people, to really emancipate themselves from this. We are the people who know where this is at. And we know that other people, everybody else is seeing what's happening and saying, this is wrong. And so we have a chance to really change that perspective, and we can really revolutionize how we can implement all an ideology and frameworks that work for us, that work for Black people, that work for Palestinians, that work for everyone. And that's something, and that's how we can move forward with that.
Waseem, I actually have a question for you on the subject of Greenland, given your expertise as a climate scientist. So we talked about how there's different motivations for the US taking military action beyond just resource extraction. Can you talk about why the United States, China, Russia, all are scrambling for control over Greenland and more broadly the Arctic, and really the geopolitical implications of this?
That is a good question. Thank you for that. And so just a bit of background as to why, the US and China and Russia are really interested in the Arctic is because they are predicting, because ironically, of climate change, and I say ironically because the US government is in denial of it, but then double thinks and says that, oh, we know it's going to now melt up there, but at the same time, right? And so, and the reason is because if that ice cap melts, right, there's in Greenland, first of all, there is, again, a lot of resources, a lot of money for them to try and come in and make for themselves. But also, the thing is that through the Arctic, Canada is kind of in a good sort of area for ships to really cross from Europe all the way through, past Alaska and the eastern tip of Russia to China into the Pacific. And so having control of that trade route is like they believe that this trade route is going to be similar to, like, the Red Sea in terms of trade. And so that's one thing why they're really interested in that. And if you can control something like that, right, you can have a lot of influence in how, let's say, the economics and the politics of the region as well. It becomes easier to go through with that. So that's my view of it. And And I would be, and I mean, anybody else can add to that as well. It probably is not the only reason. Definitely, as we mentioned before, was Venezuela. There's multiple dimensions to it, obviously, but that's how I see it personally. So,
Yeah, I appreciate you
and
elaborating on that. Real quick, just before I go to you, Kaitlyn. I read in Democracy Now! Just a couple of days ago, the U.S. is considering $100,000 cash payments to each Greenlander as part of a push to take over the island. We'll go to you, Kaitlyn Sage.
Yeah, I think that's so. I don't know. I heard that too, like earlier today, and I don't know, I just think that's so dumb and horrible. I think Greenland should. I don't think America should do anything. Obviously, like not take Greenland at all. This is what I think, and yeah, and, I was point this out like just pretty briefly, like with the going off of what Waseem said, there is also like the trade. Yeah, the trade, like he was saying, is like really what he was saying was like like comparing that area to like the Red Sea is like that's like a big deal. There's also the security aspect too that I know Trump is saying that like we need it probably to fight Russia or to protect ourselves from Russia. And I mean that's a whole nother thing too, because if we take Greenland, a lot of our NATO allies or whatever in Europe are threatening to leave NATO, and so that's the whole thing. And so yeah.
Hi, gang. Jordan, please remind me when we first had this conversation about Trump taking over Greenland. How many years ago was that? Was it just a few months ago, or am I blowing my mind here?
Years ago?
Don't you remember, when did this first come on the table that he wanted Greenland?
I think in the first administration. So
Yeah,
we probably talked about this in 2019 or 2020.
when Biden was still in office, and he was, or was he already installed? So it had to have been within the last year. I
Oh,
don't know.
Biden's
I don't
president?
remember. I don't remember. My brain is like confusing all these events. Point being, I said then, he wants Greenland for the minerals. Yeah, okay, and the rare earth minerals, there's that. But he also wants it because the snow caps are melting and he has easier trade route. And the reason why I said that is having tenure with working for a Danish company, the world's largest shipping company. You know, I learned a few things, and it's painfully obvious that the US, if it's not Trump, it will still be Vance who wants to go after Greenland. And that's also why I think they sent Vance there to soften it up. And they didn't accept him then, and they withdrew. And then it was months and months of silence. And then here we are, right? Because they just keep pushing. First of all, I think the Greenland thing was just push to distract from the Venezuela thing, which I think was a thing to make the perfect timing around the where are the rest of the Epstein files thing. So, you know, it's like it's just pancaking right up on top of one another. From over here in Europe, this is a big trigger point for us because it's like this means we could be potentially at war with America, because you can't just go invade a NATO country that is protected by the European Union. So I was, you know, poking around some of my political friends here in the EU and saying, what is the diplomacy behind this? Who actually stops the action of the US boats going towards, or US weapons going towards the continent? Because like that may be a thing that we might see in headlines next week. Who the fuck knows, right? So it's like we all have to figure out how fast this administration is actioning on things, and this becomes a trend. Like it's just becoming bullet after bullet of offenses at this point, and we can't keep up with it here in Europe because we're like, is he bluffing? Like, I thought he was dead or he's sick. And European leaders cannot agree fast enough. We cannot meet fast enough to talk about these protocols that need to be in place. Now, with all that said, I will say Like Denmark, the Danish prime minister has already come out and said, if Trump tries to do anything, it's first and foremost our problem, not anyone else's, because it's their land. And the Greenland people do not want him. So I'm not even sure if you're being fed that story in the American media, but there's lots of interviews with Greenland residents that are saying, no, thank you. That's not the money that we need or the influence that we want. Bye-bye. So the reality of it happening by force, I would not want to meet the Danish military on the sea. No, as an American. Even though Americans are big, they wouldn't send in their big military for a Greenland invasion. If anything, it would be quite interesting to be provoking European leaders to just push them a little bit into order and action over here. So I have a lot of opinions on that thing, but I honestly think Greenland is just a distraction. It's not imminent that he needs it now. It's not strategic that he needs it now. And I do think he wants to use the land for building bunkers, military bases, and data centers. I know he wants to work with the technocrats. That's why they all fucking own yachts and are sailing around the world, scoping out where they want to be when the world and the land become inhabitable for the rest of us.
I'm so
All
fucking
right.
sick of AI. Courtney and then Aleyah.
Yeah, going off of that, I mean, just to answer a couple things, yeah, we can't keep up with him over here, so I'm not surprised you guys can't keep up with him over in Europe. I think that's part of the point, though. It's just, I forget what the term is, but they're just kind of throwing everything at the wall and to see what sticks. And as long as nobody's looking at the Epstein files, you know, and then again, yeah, it's AI has become, yeah, shock and awe. You know, AI is rampant. So yeah, he's definitely cuddled up with the technocrats, and they're the ones who got JD Vance like the vice president position because Trump didn't even know or care who he was. So yeah, I can definitely see that being what he wants to do with Greenland. All of it feels alarmist, so it's kind of hard to know which thing you should worry about at what time. But yeah, we definitely are seeing, at least the media I'm coming across, we're definitely seeing, you know, Greenlanders in, you know, just not wanting us there, obviously, which I don't agree with any type of American imperialism. So I don't know. I wish we would stop. But yeah, I think that's all I was going for with that. But yeah, it's a lot to deal with here, especially because you know, there's so much going on in the like here, and then they're also making us worry about like what they're doing overseas and everywhere, and nobody can afford to live. And yeah, it's rough out here.
Go ahead, Aleyah.
While 100%, I do think that it's another distraction from the real stuff that's going on here at home. I don't think that it's not real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's definitely Trump is for sure still trying to get Greenland. Like, even if he's saying it as a distraction so that it takes over the media just for like a day or 2 days or 3 days, even, like, yes, he might be saving himself some bad representation out here for that day, because taking over Greenland to the average person, we're like, oh, that's ridiculous, he's not going to do that, like, how would he seriously do that, you know what I mean? But like, nah, motherfucker, they took over Puerto Rico, they took over Hawaii, they took over Alaska, took over Guam. It's not unrealistic that the US colonial empire would also try to take over Greenland. The only reason that people think that's ridiculous is because it's white people that live in Greenland. And it's not white people that live in Puerto Rico or in Hawaii. And so people are like, oh yeah, that makes so much more sense that he would, you know, colonize. Because I mean, a big way for colonization to work is by saying that the people who live there are too stupid to govern themselves, that they're unable to go. Yeah, literally my freaking Chromebook
That's
crashing.
that's what I mean with the cultural genocide, because people automatically think that genocide just means straight up murdering people. It's so multifaceted. It's way fucking deeper than that.
Yeah, genocide is definitely not just like killing off a lot of people. Like genocide in its definition incorporates cultural genocide for sure. And so like in order to be successful at taking Greenland, he has to start seeding the idea into his American supporters now, and his international supporters now. So it's kind of like how when your dog has to go to the bathroom really bad, you know what I mean? And they drop a little bit at a time before they really go. Like that's
Classical conditioning.
exactly right. And so like that's exactly what he's doing, is he's setting us up for the preparation of actually doing it. Before his actions in Venezuela, just to tie us back to what's happening in Latin America, before his actions in Venezuela, people were for like 2 months talking about, when is Trump going to attack Venezuela? We know what's coming. We have a socialist president in a country that's one of the most outspoken nations in Latin America against Israel, and the Epstein files are dropping. Yeah, and they've nationalized their oil. The number one most successful way for a Latin American country to boost their economy is to take the money out of the hands of Americans. 100%. It's what Bolivia did. It's what every other successful country in Latin America has done, is nationalized their resources and prevented it from going into the hands of the US government. It's like a playbook that your homie uses to get girls at the club. Like it's the same exact thing that they do, the exact same thing every single time leading up to it. And what's happening with Greenland, we're just watching the first steps of it. You know what I mean? Very rarely do we see nations just go in and start attacking other nations without talking about it first, just to like kind of test the waters to see how people really feel about that. And I think Greenland's response, as they are trying to take as strong of a stance they can, because they know that it's a real possibility that the United States government would try to colonize Greenland just as much as they have any other piece of land, including, Turtle Island. So like, of course, Greenland is actually afraid that this is going to happen. Like, of course, Greenlanders are posting videos on social media like, I'm fucking scared. Like, yeah, they should be scared, bro. Like, this is actually really fucking scary. Like, it might not happen tomorrow, but a year from now, 2 years from now, it's 100% a possibility. And I think that we can all, as a world, fully expect that things are going to get worse the closer and closer we get to the primary election in June. And I guess that's just for California, but the primaries in our country this year, which are almost usually done before the summer. And then, of course, the elections that we have for the midterms coming up in November as well. Like, the closer we see Trump is to losing power in the actual White House, the more likely we are to see him, the way a child would, throw a temper tantrum to try to grab onto as many toys as he has left before he loses his power altogether. If he's worried that another kid in the sandbox is going to come in and start taking things away from him, he's 100% going to crash out and do everything he can to hold on to his power. Like you said, it's one of the or AngelMarie's not here anymore, but like AngelMarie said, it's one of the reasons that he's manufacturing. Same with Jordan. It's one of the reasons he's manufacturing issues at the border to be able to create ICE to use as his personal military, because the military is not behind Trump. Trump needs to have a physical force to go in to take over other countries and other nations. And if he does not have the support within his own military and within his own, Department of Justice, he's not going to be able to go in and take control of the rest of the world. He has, as Audra said, he has to rely on the technocrats. He has to rely on billionaires to be able to do dirty bidding for him. He doesn't have the power that he needs to be able to do it. If he could go in tomorrow and take Greenland, he would have already. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And we just have to be a little bit more vigilant on the stuff that they're doing to distract us from when he actually does do it. You know what I mean? And so I think, AngelMarie might have said this earlier, but I think as long as we keep the pressure on, educate ourselves, and I don't want to say prepare for the worst, but yeah, absolutely, we should be preparing for the worst. Empires rise and fall all the time throughout world history. And we are coming up on, I mean, most empires don't last longer than 300 years, and that's exactly how many years we're coming up on. So it is understandable and like predictable to think that the United States as a government and the government that it exists in now will not exist. Think Star Wars, you know? Like that was like real, taken from history books. like sci-fi often predicts what we end up seeing happening now.
Yeah,
you know?
Star Wars is about Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly. Like we are taking, what's the saying? If you don't understand, those who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it. You know what I mean? Like now is definitely the time to start cracking into history books. AngelMarie's not here, so I'm going to plug Liberation Education for her. But Liberation Education does like virtual Zooms where you can learn about like history through a decolonized or an anti-colonial lens, understanding like the existence of ICE and how that's related to Iran and how that's related to Venezuela, etc. Like it's not that there's not information out there. We just have to be interested in trying to obtain it.
Yeah, really well said. So I was actually going to bring up some other shit, but since we're approaching 2 hours, I'm going to cap it here and see if you guys are interested in doing a part 2. I'll stop the recording right now.